Chapter 3, verses 101 through 200. 101. Whoever turns to the truth teaching and then turns away from it again, for whatever reason this may be, that human being is committing an outrage against himself or herself because he or she will be turning to a delusional teaching of falseness. 102. And whoever turns away from the truth teaching, which is the teaching of the true knowledge and the wisdom, will search for a teaching of belief that is bound to gods and tin gods and their priests and other servants of gods and servants of tin gods. And they will be willing to follow the false teaching in order to return to those from whom they came before they turned in doubt to the teaching of the prophets, to which they were, however, once again disloyal, because they do not understand the truth and are full of suspicion and discord, as well as being full of two-partedness, doubt, and without relation. 103. Know about the truth of the creative creation, and about the teaching of the truth as has been revealed since time immemorial up to the present day by the prophets, and as was revealed to your forefathers and their forefathers and all the people. And know that since time immemorial the prophets have not differentiated between those whom they have instructed taught. Therefore they did not display any conceit, arrogance, haughtiness, boastfulness, or any hatred against believers in tin gods, and gods and their priests and servants, and therefore neither against any other skin color or kinds, races. And therefore the prophets never demanded that those whom they were instructing in the truth teaching shall have to submit themselves to the teaching, because turning to it always has been and always will be a matter of one's own freedom. 104. How shall a people state be taught in a fair, responsible, wise if it itself and its authority are unfair, irresponsible, and unversed in the real truth and the wisdom, and therefore in the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, because unfair, irresponsible, authorities make for themselves unfair, inadmissible, biased laws and instructions and directives, ordinances, regulations, by means of which the people's freedom is held down, reduced, curtailed, constrained, and unfairly taught authorities impose unfair, disproportionate charges, taxes, on the people in order to exploit the people in irresponsibleness, so that the higher ones may skim off their expenditure, spending, imposed in falseness and irresponsibility at the expense of the people, because they spend more than they receive in fair, proportionate charges, taxes, since they cannot redeem, draw up an allocation plan, budget, in their incapability. Therefore the higher ones burden the people with more and more senseless charges, taxes, that serve to exploit and limit the people's freedom, against which the people in its indolence, unconcernedness, does not take any countermeasure. So as a result the authorities fall prey to ever greater audacity in their exploitation by charges, taxes. Therefore it shall be given that the people, rather than authority, shall decide on the necessary charges, taxes, and an allocation plan, and for all necessities. And for this purpose the people shall be advised by experts in the matter to be decided, so that the people's state may not fall into obligation, debt, over indebtedness. 105. And in order to achieve fair, responsibility-conscious authorities which guide the people in a fair, responsible, wise, handling their affairs and desires and requirements in a fair, responsible, wise, then it can only be that the higher ones may not raise themselves up to their area, office, position, post, but are appointed by election, voting, in which case the majority of the votes is decisive. It may be, however, that the candidates for an area, office, position, post, and authority are strictly checked, proved, so that only such human beings are appointed to a task who are capable of fulfilling them equitably and in honesty and equitableness, fairness, and without demanding, desiring, personal advantages. And each human being who is called into an area, office, position, post, of authority shall be remunerated by the people, state, in a fair, proportionate, wise, and not in an exaggerated remuneration, and therefore without special rights and claims, as well as without special concession, authority, and special rights, privileges, so that he or she may be ranked equally to any other fair one, responsible one, of the people, so that there may be no position of presumption, superiority, elevation, for the leaders compared to the people. In truth, in all rights, all people of your kind, human beings, as people of your kind, human beings, are equal, and one is not worth any more than another. Therefore there may be no difference between the leaders and the people, and also not between rich and poor, not between those who are knowing and unknowing, not between those who are educated and uneducated, not between fair ones, responsible ones, and unfair ones, irresponsible ones, and neither between believers and those who are knowing of the truth, or between kinds, races, and skin colors and peoples. 106. How shall the true prophets teach the people, irrespective of whether the people is knowing or unknowing in the truth teaching, if the people does not confirm that it wants to be taught by them? And how shall the true prophets teach the authority, irrespective of whether the higher ones are knowing or unknowing in the truth teaching, if they do not confirm that they want to be taught by them? In truth, the true prophets can only teach those who confirm that they want to be taught, whether they are ones knowing of the truth or ones unknowing of the truth. 107. And truly, do not open your ears to those who lie to you, saying that you will be cursed if you do not believe in gods and tin gods, or in liberators, angels, and demons, and venerable ones, holy ones, because all of them are only unsubstantial fabulations, inventions, of those who are confused, and of all those who want to beat you down into servitude, bondage, and exploit you through your belief. And therefore their lies are also hazy pictures, delusions, as are shared by their believers. And the priests of gods and tin gods, and of other servants of gods and servants of tin gods. And do not open your ears to those who lie to you that you will be cursed if you do not believe in priests and other servants, hands helpers, of delusional beliefs in gods and tin gods. And also if you do not believe in people of your kind, human beings, who raise themselves up as godheads or as authorized ones, substitutes, of gods and tin gods and demons. 108. Pay heed to only dwelling amongst those who are connected to the truth, but not amongst the deniers of the truth, so that you shall not become like them, and that you do not create punishment in yourselves through lovelessness and unpeace and unknowledgeness. And do not give yourselves any deferment, time limit, for remaining amongst deniers of the truth if they confront you threateningly, intimidatingly, dangerously, so that you shall subserviently bow down in bondage to their lies about the truth. 109. It shall not be held against you as unright if you dwell amongst deniers of the truth or consort with them, providing you do not let yourselves be made uncertain in your love for the truth. 110. Truly, if you dwell amidst deniers of the truth or consort with those who were previously knowing of the truth and fell away from it, then protect yourselves in particular from their fickleness, change of mind, because they are 7 times more slanderous, calumnious, in their denial of the truth than those who have never been connected to the truth teaching before. 111. And truly, those who have fallen away from the truth after previously having been connected to it, and who continue to wallow in unknowledgeness of the truth, they will not rue this quickly, but will be confused for a long time, and will always be concerned to slander, calumniate those who are knowing in the truth, and to make them turn away from their love of the truth. 112. As for those who are unknowing in the truth and the truth teaching of the prophets, you shall not accept either gold or other values from them if they, in their wanting to buy themselves free from the bad of their unknowledge, are giving it as ransom. Truly, it is not possible to free oneself from the bad and pangs of conscience, from vices and lapses, by performing penitence, atonement, and by making a penitential payment, indulgence, fine, ransom, because liberation from this can only come about through an elimination, no repetition, of the fallibilities, errors, and, if necessary, by an appropriate fulfillment of guidelines. If priests and other servants of tin gods and servants of gods accept penitence, atonement, and a penitential payment, indulgence, fine, ransom, then they are doing not right and are only interested in robbing their believers, because they cannot guarantee forgiveness for the bad and guilt or for vice and lapses either through penitence, atonement, or through a penitential payment, indulgence, fine, ransom, because forgiveness can only be granted by those who committed the bad and lapses themselves and have loaded the guilt or vice on themselves, as well as by those who had to suffer under them. 113. You can only achieve righteousness, conscientiousness, if you are fair ones, responsible ones, and knowing ones, and fulfillers of the truth and of the laws and recommendations of the creation. And you are also fair ones, responsible ones, and righteous ones, conscientious ones, if you give to the poor and needy from that which is dear to you. 114. And truly, all food and all drink is permitted to you, with the exception of that which is adverse to your well-being, because it is inedible or undrinkable due to being dangerous and deadly. 115. And as you want to be fair ones, responsible ones, and righteous ones, conscientious ones, abide by the teaching of the prophets so that you follow their words and are truthful in following the truth and the laws and recommendations of the creation. 116. However, those amongst you who fabulate, invent, lies and slanders, calumnies against the prophets and their teaching, and against the truth, and against the laws and recommendations of the creation, you are committing an outrage against all irrefutability, rightness, reality, flawlessness, authenticity, truthfulness, of the inner world of the firmaments, universal consciousness. 117. The prophets have spoken the truth since time immemorial. Therefore follow their teaching, their explanations and words, so that you are connected to the truth, as the prophets are connected to you, and next to them you shall not have any false prophets, and not lend them your ear. 118. And the teaching of the true prophets is the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, originating out of the laws and recommendations of the creation and of the appearance, nature, created by it, and it is overabundant in boons, prosperousness, fullness, fruitfulness, etc., as a guideline, signposting leading thought for all peoples. 119. The teaching of the truth provides clear signs, evidence, and whoever recognizes and understands them shall find true love and peace in himself or herself, as well as freedom and unity, harmony. Guide your inner world consciousness on a pilgrimage to the truth, so that you fulfill your duty of unfolding, evolution growth, which is the sense of the life. 120. Anyone amongst you who persists in unknowledge and does not follow the duty to follow the truth, may consider that although you are independent from all created creations, in your will, have free will. You are, however, subject to the laws and recommendations of the creation and of the appearance, nature, that it has created. Therefore you cannot escape them and determine your life yourselves for good or ill through your bearing behavior. By your own account, responsibility. 121. Why do you deny the truth, and therefore also the teaching of the prophets and their signs, marvels, which demonstrate the truth to you? 122. And why do you keep all of those away from the truth teaching who are striving to search for the real truth and are willing to follow the laws and recommendations of the knowledge and wisdom? 123. And why do you try to make the straight way of the truth into a crooked one, considering you are yourselves witnesses to the signs, evidence, of the prophets and their truth teaching? But know that your slanderous, calumnious deeds will not remain without consequences for you, because you are bringing affliction and harm on yourselves and will have to carry them. 124. And you who know about the truth, if you obey even in any small wise those who slander, calumniate the truth, then they will make you unknowing in the truth again, although you have been connected to it. 125. Ask yourselves, however, how you can once again become unknowing ones in the truth after the signs, evidence, of the truth have been brought forward to you by the prophets who dwell amongst you, or who have dwelt amongst you time and time again, and also brought you the signs, evidence, of the truth. And if you consider your question, then you will know that you can only fall away from the truth again because you are doubting and do not hold fast to what will truly lead you on the right way. 126. You, however, who know about the truth of the primal raising, creation, be respectful, deferential in your knowledge, and make sure that death does not befall you while turned away from the truth. 127. And all of you keep firm to the lifeline of the truth teaching, and do not be disunited amongst one another in any wise, neither in your existence with one another nor in the explanation of the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life. 128. Always think of the grace, favor, mildness, of the laws and recommendations of the origin, creation, when you are following them. Therefore also think of the grace, favor, mildness, which you shall give to those who call themselves your enemies, so that enmity may turn into true friendship, come together in love, and bring understanding, insight, forth for one another, so that you may be like brothers and sisters, and may respect and protect one another. 129. Do not bring yourselves to the edge of a firing pit due to enmity. Rather guard yourselves against this, so that you do not fall headlong into one and are not burned beyond recognition as a result of your hatred and your pathological craving for revenge. fulfill the laws and recommendations of the creation and of the appearance, nature, clearly and decisively, as has been taught you by the true prophets, so that you may be rightly guided. 130. And see to it that there is a growing community of people of your kind, fellow human beings, amongst you which strives to fulfill the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life and goodness, and which incites, instructs to the right and refuses the unright, so that it may go well with you. 131. And do not become separated or contradictory or disunited amongst one another in any wise and for whatever reason, but instead take the clear evidence of the prophets and live in love with one another, so that you do not bring down any punishment on yourselves. 132. See to it that your faces do not become darkened through iniquity, unfairness, and unknowledgeness in the truth. Rather make sure that your faces are brightened by equitableness, fairness, and knowledge in the truth, and its teaching as has been given by the prophets in accordance with the laws and recommendations of the fruitfulness, creation. 133. Those whose faces are darkened by lying and deception, by slander, calumny, and all disastrous things, they are separating themselves from the community of the fair ones, responsible ones, and those knowing of the truth. 134. And those whose faces are brightened by their love of the truth, their knowledge, their wisdom, their equitableness, fairness, and their respect, deference for the truth, they will be in the grace of very many people of your kind, human beings, and will dwell amongst them as esteemed ones, and ones who are always welcome. 135. These are also signs, evidence, of the laws and recommendations of knowledge, of wisdom, and the laws and recommendations of the creation and the appearance, nature. And these are also signs, evidence, of the prophets who bring them forth to you, because they encompass the truth, and they give them because they do not want any iniquity, unfairness, or unknowledge in the truth amongst you. 136. The primal wellspring of wisdom, creation, is everything that exists in the firmaments, universe, and on the earth's, worlds, planets. And it has presented everything before you, so that you may manage it rightfully, and may also be rightful yourselves. Therefore you may decide to act rightfully in all things. 137. You are the best created creations, life forms, who have arisen for the benefit of all people of your kind, human beings. Therefore you shall also bring the benefit to people of your kind, fellow human beings, and not wage any battles, wars, amongst one another. You shall safeguard the rights amongst one another and protect yourselves against all unright by following the guideline, sign, posting, leading thought of the primal wellspring of wisdom, creation, its laws and recommendations that are given to you by the true prophets. 138. And know that if you open your ears to the teaching of the prophets, then truly you dedicate yourselves to, are being loyal to, the guideline, signposting, leading thought of the existence, and it will be better for you. 139. And heed the teaching of the true prophets, because only they teach the guideline, signposting, leading thought of the primal wellspring of wisdom, creation, the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, because they teach love and peace, freedom and unity, harmony. And do not heed the false prophets who only teach the guidelines of evil, so that there may be lovelessness and unpeace, as well as unfreedom and disunity, disharmony, amongst you, just as they also commit manslaughter and bloody deeds, murder, and teach punishments as laws of their fabulated, invented gods and tin gods, so that you are subjugated and submissive, in bondage, to them, and are biddable out of fear of punishment. And they can fleece, exploit you, and subdue, master you. 140. Be on your guard against the false prophets, because then they can only do you little or even no harm. And when they are against you in order to influence you with their false teachings, then turn your back on them, and in this wise they will not find any victims in you. 141. If you turn away from the false prophets, then they will be smitten with ignominy wherever they are met, unless you let them close to you and you offer them your protection. But know that the false prophets bring delusional teachings of fabulated, invented gods and tin gods, as do equally their priests and other servants of tin gods, so that you shall follow the false teachings and kill and punish in the name of the gods and tin gods. Consider that true prophets do not bring any teaching of this kind, but the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, And this does not include either laws or recommendations that instruct, command, to kill, put to the ordeal, torture, or punish. Because in truth, the truth teaching of the true prophets is based on the laws and recommendations of the creation, which do not know manslaughter and bloody deeds, murder, and also do not know ordeal, torture, or punishment, but only true love and peace as well as freedom, and concordance, harmony. Therefore you shall be watchful and detect the false prophets by their speaking, just as you detect their priests and other servants of gods and servants of tin gods who spread the insidious and deceitful teachings of the false prophets, so that you shall bow down, be in bondage, to them and their false teachings. 142. Do not agitate yourselves in rage because of the fabulated, invented, and falsified teachings of the false prophets, which are nonsensical and deceitful to the truth, as well as their priests and other servants of gods and servants of tin gods. And do not fall into misery because of the falsified teachings of the false prophets, who have since time immemorial rejected the true teaching of the truth and its signs, evidence, just as they also do today, so that you unrighteously kill, murder, put to the ordeal, torture, and punish as since time immemorial. Be on your guard against the false prophets and their deceitful and insidious teachings, and also against those who bring the false teachings of the false prophets and fabulated, invented, gods and tin gods amongst you as priests and other servants of gods and servants of tin gods, because they are rebels and outrageous ones, irresponsible ones, against the truth of the formation, creation, and its laws and recommendations. 143. Truly, you are not all the same, because there are some amongst you who follow the bond with the truth and lead your existence accordingly. So you care for the truth in word and in teaching, both in the daytime and in the hours of night. But there are also some amongst you who are connected to a belief in gods and tin gods, in liberators, angels, and demons, and in venerable ones, holy ones, and in godheads, and the like. In such doing you are following a false teaching and are cursing the truth. But you who do such things, you are imposing a harmful punishment of lovelessness, hatred, pathological craving for revenge, unpeace, unfreedom, and dissonance, disharmony, on yourselves. 144. Know always about the truthly truth of the formation, creation, and its laws and recommendations, thereby bringing about the right and demanding the unright its rightlessness. 145. Compete with one another to do good deeds, and always retain your righteousness, conscientiousness. And for the good deeds that you do, and for retaining your righteousness, conscientiousness, you shall receive your fair, appropriate reward, and your good deeds and your righteousness, conscientiousness, shall not be disputed, because whoever knows the truth shall esteem it well and recognize it in deference, esteem. 146. Curses and damnation shall not be called down, wished, on the unfair ones, irresponsible ones, and truth deniers, the thieves and deceivers, the murderers and all those who do unright. Rather, they shall be given the prospect, possibility, in accordance with the right and law, and appropriately in accordance with the laws and recommendations of the primal power creation, to be able to understand their doing unright through learning the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, which shall also apply if the fulfillment of guidelines, punishment by separation from the society for a certain time, is ordered, goods that are wangled, grift, through unright, or goods that are obtained in any other wise through unright, shall not benefit the thieves and deceivers and all other unrighteous ones, conscienceless ones, because it shall be taken away from them and given back to those from whom it was expropriated, stolen, in one wise or another. And damage done to goods and chattels and possessions through doing unright shall be remedied to the full extent by the fallible ones, whether the remedy takes the form of performing a service, work, or repaying the liability for the damage in the form of currency. 147. You are unfair amongst yourselves and therefore against yourselves. Therefore you shall learn equitableness, fairness, against yourselves and against people of your kind, human beings, so that you may find a peaceful coexistence and peace in yourselves. 148. Do not throw away your life on earth in unknowledge of the truth of the primal power creation, so that you will not be destructive like the whirlwind which blows through the arable crops with icy unweather and destroys them. Do not commit outrages against your existence, and therefore also not against the continuance of your world through unknowledge. Because otherwise you will destroy yourselves as well as your earth and your appearance, nature. Be at all times moderate in all things, and do not drive up the number of your descendants into copiousness, vastness, enormousness, unlimitedness, so that you will not become the destroyers of your world, and it does not rebel against you in misery and pain, and protect itself against your destructive frenzy with primal Goblet, and does not crush you in your creation's achievements. 149. You who are knowing in the truth teaching, do not take those as trusted friends who do not stand up for you, and only feign friendship as long as they have a premium benefit from you, but do not remember their friendship any longer when you fall into misery and need their help. 150. And you who are knowing in the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, do not take those as your trusted friends who are far from the truth teaching and are unwilling to understand and accept you as ones who have knowledge of the truth, because they will not fail, neglect, to destroy you. And truly they like it when you are struck by calamity. And their hatred against you will quickly become apparent from their mouth. But what their breast, feeling center, conceals, hides, is even worse. And truly, they do not want to understand the laws and recommendations of the life. 151. If you are fair ones, responsible ones, and ones knowing of the truth, then you doubtless love those who believe themselves to be your enemies, because they consider themselves as your enemies although you are not theirs, but they do not love you nevertheless. The ones who see themselves as your enemies, but you do not see them as yours. You love them, because you act in love in accordance with the truth teaching, which teaches that all people of your kind, human beings, are equal to one another as people of your kind, human beings. Those who believe themselves to be your enemies do not love you, however. Rather, they are deceiving you, because they pretend to you that they are connected to the truth, although they are not. And when they are alone, then they gnaw their fingertips in rage against you. And they would prefer to die in their rage against you than to resolve their enmity and their rage and hatred against you in themselves. 152. Truly, if something good happens to you, then it pains those who believe that they are your enemies. But if something evil happens to you, then they rejoice over it and laugh. But remain steadfast and upright in spite of their doings, and esteem them as people of your kind, human beings, and embrace them with love. Then their intrigues will not harm you. 153. Consider that when you get up early in the morning and go out of your house, that you shall always be friendly and good to yourselves, as well as to all those whom you meet and with whom you have doings, so that neither you nor anyone else may fall into agitation about you. 154. Never reflect upon chicken-heartedness, cowardice, but always be upright, daring, bold, and joyful, so that you give yourselves power and the others respect and honor you. 155. Never be connected to chicken-heartedness, cowardice, but always stand by yourselves with great bravery, so that you may never be weak in any things, and so that you may take yourselves as protectors in all things, so you may be thankful to yourselves. 156. It is not sufficient for you that the prophets bring you signs, evidence, and the teaching of the truth, since you are striving with false teachings to be like your fabulated, invented, gods and tin gods, and you obstinately allow yourselves to be led into confusion by their priests and other servants, hands helpers, believing that your god or tin gods are sending liberators, angels, down to you who shall come to your aid when you are fighting in a battle, war, with those whom you have raised up as your enemies. 157. And as you make enemies for yourselves, so they come over you in reckless haste, but no liberators, angels, will come storming out of the clouds from the firmament, from your gods and tin gods, in order to hurry to your aid, because liberators, angels, from gods and tin gods are just as much fabulated, invented, unsubstantial formations by people of your kind, human beings, as are the gods and tin gods themselves. 158. Therefore you shall arrange yourselves according to the real truth, as is given to you by the teaching of the prophets, so that you may accept their joyful message in yourselves in order to calm yourselves in your inner world, consciousness, in your intention and consideration, reflections and strivings. And truly, if help is given to you in any things, then it comes from you alone, because as far as you are concerned, you are the mighty ones, and those who have to create knowledge and wisdom in yourselves. 159. However, so many amongst you are inconstant, which is why you cut off parts of the truth as unknowing ones and debase yourselves thereby. This explains why you often have to turn away from unfulfilled things of evil when the truth catches up to you. 160. It is your task alone to turn to yourselves in clemency, kind-heartedness, and to make yourselves into ones knowing of the truth, as it is also your significance, concern matter. Whether you punish yourselves by being malefactors, irresponsible ones, against the truth. 161. Everything that exists in the firmaments, universe, and on the earth's, worlds, planets, belongs to the primal power of the love creation. But you are the ones to whom it is given to forgive yourselves or to punish yourselves according to equitableness, fairness. 162. All those amongst you who are ones who have knowledge of the truth and fair ones, responsible ones, and righteous ones, conscientious ones, do not gobble up a markup interest and markup on markup compound interest when you give advances, loans, or borrowing, loan money, or mortgaging, pledged money, surety money, but only demand a markup, interest, and settlement in a fair, tolerable wise, so that you are not rapacious ones, avaricious ones, usurers, and so that it may go well with you. 163. Fear rapacity, practicing usury, and the fire of unknowledge if you turn away from the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, and become depraved in yourselves by creating lovelessness and unpeace, as well as unfreedom and dissonance, disharmony, in yourselves. 164. Listen to the teaching of the prophets and their words of the truth teaching, so that you may find grace, kind-heartedness, and mildness in your existence. 165. And compete with one another in assiduousness, striving for true love and for peace, as well as for freedom and consonance, harmony, so that you may forgive all those who assume they are your enemies, so that you may create a paradise on your world and honor and dignity may be yours, as is planned through the laws and recommendations of the primal power creation. For all of you who shall be truth-knowing and raised above all untruth, above all unright and all evil, as well as above enmity and battle war, above hatred and jealousy, unfair, irresponsible, punishment and ordeal, torture, above revenge and retaliation and everything that is against the guideline, signposting leading thought of the primal power creation. 166. You are rightfully fair ones, responsible ones, and righteous ones, conscientious ones, if you give contributions, alms donations, to the poor and needy, whether you are in fortunate or unfortunate circumstances. And you are also fair ones, responsible ones, and righteous ones, conscientious ones, if you do not allow any anger and hatred, as well as any revenge and jealousy, and anything else that is unright to arise in yourselves. And you are also fair ones, responsible ones, and righteous ones, conscientious ones, if you evince, grant, show forgiveness to people of your kind, fellow human beings, and show goodness to them. 167. And those amongst you who commit a misdeed or an outrage against yourselves, consider your infamous action, crime, and search for forgiveness, so that it may go well with you, and you do not knowingly, consciously, persist in your unright doing. 168. And if you give forgiveness to yourselves and ask for forgiveness from all those to whom you have done unright, then your reward will be a garden of happiness and joy in which a stream of true love and of peace, as well as of true freedom and consonance, harmony, will flow. You will remain in the garden of happiness and joy as the reward for what you effect through your effort. 169. Before your time, the true prophets presented and explained many laws and recommendations of the creative creation, and of the appearance, nature, proceeding from it, so that you may receive a guideline, signposting leading thought for your existence and how to lead your life. Therefore you shall take up the teaching of the true prophets, so that you wander across earth and see that your end will be good. Not, however, like those who slander, calumniate the truth and accuse, blame the true prophets of lying. 170. The teaching of the prophets is a clear explanation for people of your kind, human beings, and a guideline, signposting leading thought, and admonishment, so that you may be fair, responsible, and righteous, conscientious, and truth-knowing, and so that you may vilify, curse, everything that is unright, and that you may only do what is rightful. 171. Do not tire in doing what is fair, responsible, and righteous, conscientious, and do not sorrow about terrible things and unfortune in the past, just as you do not sorrow about iniquity, unfairness, that is done to you, and everything that is of unright that has been blamed, ascribed to you. Do at all times what is rightful, and let bygones be bygones, so that you may prevail, gain the upper hand over everything of the past, and not wail over what is come and gone, things of the past, and inconstant mortal things. 172. If you as ones knowing of the truth incur a wound, then be certain, knowing that those who have no knowledge of the truth incur similar wounds, because everything is changing amongst the people of your kind, human beings, so that they may be admonished from this to learn in consciousness, consciously, and to differentiate themselves from animals and other creatures which are not capable, able, to learn in consciousness, consciously. Truly, the person of your kind, human being, is set apart from the beasts and from all animals and other creatures by his or her ability to learn in consciousness, consciously, whereas the beasts and all animals and other creatures only learn through their urges, instincts, and are not skillful, capable of thoughts. 173. Be at all times faithful to the truth teaching and cleanse yourselves daily from all inequitable things, errors, unrights, that you cannot avoid doing in order to bring fullness, sufficiency, to your unfolding evolution, so that you may be constantly ever more fair, responsible, and knowing, and therefore wiser, so that you are witnesses to the truth. Therefore you shall eradicate everything inequitable from yourselves by granting yourselves cleansing from it. 174. Do not assume, believe, that you will enter the realm of the truth as long as you have not decided in favor of it, and you do not yet distinguish yourselves from those who are openly connected to the untruth and unknowledge. Assume, believe, only that you will enter the realm of the truth and of the love, peace, and freedom, as well as of the harmony if you are steadfast ones in following the truth and its laws and recommendations. 175. Quite a few amongst you have the habit of wishing for death before you meet it in a natural wise. But consider that if you look out for it without it coming to you at a time of its own choosing, then you are malefactors, lawbreakers against the life and against the laws and recommendations of the creative creation and against its appearance, nature. Truly, bringing death at one's own hand and being your own murderer in chicken-heartedness, cowardice, is killing in Ausartung and against the laws of the life. 176. Do not believe that you may die after a predetermined period of time, because there is no decision by fabulated, invented gods and tin gods for how long your existence shall continue. Truly, death comes to everyone in its own time, which is determined by the inner and outer foreordination, destiny, such as age or illness, accident or gavolt, and other things that bring life to an end. 177. And whoever desires the reward of the world, it will be given to them according to their share merit. And whoever desires the reward of the life, that is obtaining a peaceful death, the human being will receive it in due measure, according to the unfolding evolution of his or her inner world consciousness. 178. And everyone will receive their reward according to what they merit. So also dying as a conversion, transition, change to death will take the form that corresponds to the reward of the life. 179. The true prophets decide themselves to carry out their determination, mission, by learning the laws and recommendations of the creative creation and appearance, nature, in order to teach them to you in love and dedication, so that you may lead a good existence and recognize the truth, so that you may create true love and true peace in yourselves and around yourselves, from which true freedom and harmony may arise. 180. Truly, the old true prophets have gone before you to teach you and to guide you, but you persecuted them and you made attempts on their life, because you did not turn around and do not follow in their footsteps. You do not turn to the truth teaching. But as you do not turn round to the truth and you follow in the footsteps, follow the beliefs of the unfair ones, irresponsible ones, and the unknowing ones. So you continue to hound the true prophets and make attempts on their life. However, consider that even if you hound the true prophets and try to kill them, you still cannot harm their teaching of the truth, teaching of the Spirit, teaching of the life in the slightest wise, because it exists for all time and is therefore indestructible, because it goes forth as instruction from the truth of the creative creation and from its laws and recommendations. And truly, if you turn yourselves to the instruction, then you will be able to grant thankfulness to yourselves. 181. And there have been so many false prophets at whose side numerous crowds fought for false teachings of fabulated, invented gods and tin gods, and their priests and servants of gods and servants of tin gods. In this wise, innumerable people of your kind, human beings, were killed, murdered, with evil gavolt and bloodlust, and others were forced into a servitude bondage, in the belief of the battle hordes, war hordes. And as it was like this in times of old before you, it continues to be so. Because you are convinced in your false belief in gods and tin gods, as well as being believers in your demoniacal faith. And you do not notice that your fabulated, invented gods and tin gods, as well as their priests and other servants of gods and servants of tin gods, are proclaiming love and peace, as well as freedom and harmony, whilst however demanding revenge and punishment, as well as battle, war, and gavolt and retaliation by speaking in favor of the death penalty and killing, murdering, in battles, wars, thereby anointing, blessing, murderous weapons, and the sword of justice for spilling blood of your kind, blood of human beings, in the name of their gods and tin gods. 182. In truth, true prophets have stood up, appeared, and have brought the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life. But all those who were given the task of writing down the prophets' truth teaching misrepresented it with falsifications and deceptions and lies, and therefore with fabulated, invented additions and with false explanations. In this wise they created teachings of lies. And those who taught and followed the teachings of lies as higher ones committed deception in the name of the true prophets and evoked battles, wars, for spreading a fabulated, invented belief. And they falsified the petition, intercession, of the truth and the records, chronicle writing of history, and falsely attributed their wrongdoings to the true prophets, so that these may be held to blame, responsible for battles, wars, and deaths, as well as for gavolt and coercion, and for all terrible things, although they did not have any share in the battle, war, and bloody deed, murder, and destruction, and in all Ausartungen. Therefore, however, it will be that the last prophet from the line of Nocedemian in the new time will be equipped with all necessary things, and will be well versed in writing, so that he will no longer need scribes. Therefore he will know how to record the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life as set down in the goblet of the truth, and will bring it to permanence in his own words. 183. Do not hesitate, because whatever may happen to you, and whatever hits you, you have since time immemorial, and now, and also in the most distant coming time in your possession the teaching of the true prophets, so that you may not become submissive or weak before yourselves, and also not before those who believe they are your enemies. 184. And always speak the truth, and be the steadfast one, so that you cannot be accused of lying or slander, calumny. And forgive the people of your kind, human beings, their errors as well as their misdemeanors in their conduct. In this wise you may strengthen your and their steps, so that peace and concord, harmony, may prevail amongst you. 185. Consider that you receive the reward of this world according to how you unite amongst one another, live together, and how you do good things amongst one another and practice true love. 186. Consider that if you lend your ear to and listen to those who are wallowing in the untruth and unknowledgeness, then the result will be that you will turn about on your heels, deny the truth, and you will be the ones to lose. 187. The prophets are the protectors of the truth teaching, and you shall be both the protectors of the true prophets and also the protectors of the truth teaching, not only at the times when the prophets are living but also thereafter, so that the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life may become the guideline, signposting, leading thought to all peoples of your kind, humankind, for following the laws and recommendations of the primal raising creation. 188. Do not be alarmed if you turn away from the untruth and from the unknowledge about the truth and turn towards the guideline, signposting, leading thought, of the life and of the real truth, and you obligate yourselves, and if you do not place any fabulated, invented, false teachings of baseless, invented gods and tin gods as rivals next to the truth. The truth does not grant any authorization for falseness and lying, which dwells in the fire of evil and is the place of shelter for malefactors against the truth. 189. Truly, The true prophets have always kept their promises, even if there were some amongst you who beat them and threatened, menaced them with death, and hounded them, because you wavered in recognizing and accepting the truth and loved being connected to the lie instead of to the truth. 190. And since time immemorial there have been many amongst you, and there remain many amongst you today, who ask for this world of the visible, but also ask for the world of the invisible in order to test the prophets, because you do not want the truth to be true. But the prophets forgive you, because they are kind-hearted towards you, who are unknowing and do, after all, want to find the way to the truth. 191. Do not go forth and look around you when the prophets are calling out their teaching behind you, so that you may not endure any suffering and may not sorrow about the evil and disastrous things that you will lose, which befell you a long time ago and drove you into fleeing from the teaching of the truth. 192. Let there be innocent love and peace, as well as freedom and consonance, harmony, in you and about you through the teaching of the prophets, so that you may cultivate your dignity as people of your kind, being human in the real and true sense, and do not give any reason for resentment and rage. 193. Since time immemorial, the true prophets have brought the teaching to you for peace and for love, not however false teachings of evil which call for battles, wars, and bloody deeds, murder, and destruction. In truth, many of you lead a life as if you were lying in a troubled slumber tormented by anxious dreams, nightmares, incubus, because you are living against the truth and only for yourselves, and because you are not bringing your inner world, consciousness, to unfolding evolution. 194. Truly, you are wrongly thinking thoughts of the unknowledgeness and of the untruth, and therefore you do not have any share in the regulation of things as they are given by the laws and recommendations of the creation. And also the regulation of all things shall be a task, cause for you, and therefore you shall fathom out in the regulation of all things what of its sense has been hidden from you, so that you may understand what the guideline, signposting, leading thought of the life is. 195. If you had used a share of the regulation of all things for yourselves, then you would not kill people of your kind, fellow human beings, and therefore you would not steal or deceive, you would not hate or practice revenge and retaliation, neither would you harbor jealousy or fall prey to battles, wars, and all Ausartung. 196. If you had remained by the truth teaching since time immemorial as was brought to you by the true proclaimers, the prophets, then you would not have lowered yourselves, debased yourselves, allowing yourselves to be driven into hatred and pathological craving for revenge, and into battles, wars, and into all Ausartungen by the rulers and authorities, as well as by false prophets and fabulated, invented gods and tin gods and their priests and other servants of gods and servants of tin gods. If you had remained by the truth teaching since time immemorial, then you would not have allowed yourselves to be commanded to go out in order to wreak decadence, manslaughter and bloody deeds, murder, and pillage by wars, battles, and transgressions, illegality, and outrages, crimes, thereby complying with following the evil and false resolutions of the instigators, fomenters, hate-mongers, and ringleaders. At all times you would have had to prove yourselves in order to stand against the Goblet rulers and other lords and their demagogues, so that you would have cast them from their throne and replaced them with true leaders. Truly, at all times the people shall provide its own leadership if it does so rightfully, so that the higher ones are only delegated ones, deputies, of the people, and do not have might over the people, but are only carrying out the will of the people, because it is the people itself that shall decide on its prosperity and adversity and not be constrained by rulers and lords and the higher ones, as well as by false prophets or priests and servants of gods and servants of tin gods. Therefore, every authority shall be appointed by the people, so that it stands in the people's favor and only carries out the instructions, directives, through having been authorized, empowered by the people. 197. May the resolution ripen in you that you prove everything, so that you may reform, clarify, everything that must be done, so that your authorities follow the will of the people rather than you follow the will of the authorities. As a people you shall be decisive for your prosperity and adversity, under the good teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life which is given as the goblet of the truth by the true prophets from the line of Nocademian, the originator of all true prophets of his line, who taught true love and true peace, as well as true freedom and harmony. 198. Those amongst you who turn your back on yourselves in enmity, truly you are stumbling because of certain things which you do amongst one another in unright. But you shall not meet one another in enmity. Rather you shall forgive one another and be forbearing. Truly, it is not seemly for people of your kind, human beings, to hold people of your kind in enmity, because this brings torments and depravity in the thoughts and in the feelings as well as in the psyche and the inner world consciousness. 199. Do not persist in unknowledge, so that you do not wander through the land with evil intent or depart for a battle war, and so that you do not load blame on yourselves, or so that you do not come to the sense that it would be better to die or be slain rather than having to live with an unbearable tormenting guilt. 200. And if you have reason for remorse due to a light or heavy burden of guilt that you have loaded on yourselves, then nevertheless give priority to life and do not presume to accommodate, to abet death, because you do not want to give account for your guilt and chicken-heartedness, cowardice. Life is given for fulfillment, so that it may be savored in good time when existence is full of kind-heartedness and joy, but that it shall also be endured in misery and poor times when existence is difficult to bear and full of pain and sorrow.